There's no need to mess about. There's no need to, like try and kiss you and get you ready. It's just fucking listen to it, mate. You've already heard part one. This is part two of Toy Story and its hidden messages.
Now, I feel like the film is trying to teach us a little bit of something about electrons. Woody freezes and collapses as a wagon approaches him whilst Buzz is scanning around. Woody's the electron, acting as expected when observed. But could they be trying to show us that electrons have an opposite that does whatever it wants regardless of observation? Because there's positrons and neutrons, they're supposed to be opposites, and then there's electrons, and there's probably someone going to be watching this going, but there is an opposite of electrons. But does that electron do stuff when it's not observed? How could we even measure that, mate? There's no way to measure if something does something while it's not observed, while we're not watching it or taking note about it or paying it any mind. Maybe there's this other thing that does what it wants anyway. Maybe the person in the lorry can't even see Buzz, because why would you? Think about how big he'd be, about 5 inches, 4 inches tall. Looks kind of big in a kid's hand, which that might be the appeal to paedophiles as well, who knows. Anyway, then we get a bit more truth out of the dialogue, disguised though as nonsense. Buzz tells us the universe is in danger because at the edge of the galaxy, Emperor Zurg is poised, building something strong enough to destroy an entire planet. Sounds a lot like the Death Star, right? But during this scene, mate, this is the first glimpse we get of the moon in the sky. Now, that's very significant, innit, in the films that we've covered so far. They always show the moon. It's always to do with a hybridization or something like that. But this time it seems very much a nod of the moon is being built here. So maybe this is about it being built as in, it is to destroy an entire planet, but maybe they're building an army building the moon so they can build an army within it, hybridize an army, genetically engineer an army within the moon. The moon gets reflected in the visor of Buzz's helmet, and it's in its waxing crescent phase, almost to show that the process has started, but it's not finished. It's not even halfway, really. I don't know if that's halfway, actually, waxing crescent. I don't think it is. They're always focusing on the moon in films as well, innit? Like I just said, it's in Lion King, in Megamind, in all these films we've covered, but there's no mention of the genetic manipulation in this one, unless maybe you consider Woody explaining that Buzz isn't the real Buzz, almost like Buzz is a clone of the real Buzz. But that's a reference to genetic manipulation, I suppose, not so much genetic hybridization or anything like that, like it's in the other episodes. Woody is actually very dismissive of Buzz's beliefs about alien life and the danger to the galaxy and this evil emperor out beyond the stars. Now, this could be a means of teaching children that if they believe in things like this, they're going to be ridiculed, meaning many people are going to refuse to look into topics like this. Not you, though. You're watching this, you're listening to this, you're taking this in. Buzz then makes the Spock signal, right? Which is weird. But that seems like a way to normalise us to the idea that alien life's only going to have 3 digits. Like Mewtwo, who also wasn't the original Mew, or the Greys, which are also considered to be clones, or at least manipulations of an original. And it's weird how it all lines up. Mewtwo uses his 3 fingers to manipulate the weather and change the sky, make the sky go grey and dark. The Greys are always shown to have 3 fingers, sometimes 4, but mostly 3 fingers from what I've seen. Now, we see the logo for Pizza Planet, and the driver is what sounds like how I imagine a Californian stoner to sound. More than that though, right? The logo itself has a picture of a planet that looks an awful lot like Saturn, mate. Saturnalia is supposed to be one of the biggest things worshipped amongst the elites. But so is pizza, right? Pizza in quotes, man. Pizza is in sex with young children, and some believe it's all done in the name of Saturnalia, like I said earlier on in the show, the worship of Saturn, the planet, the god. So to have a planet that looks like Saturn, but made of pizza, feels like a very obvious nod, a very obvious joke at the viewer's expense. Alternatively though, maybe it could be a way of the filmmakers warning us about this, or simply laying the seeds for the conspiracy to take hold in case the big they need to uproot establishments in order to discredit what they're saying or for their work in the future. This Pizza Planet van also arrives at exactly 33 minutes, 33 seconds into the film, right? So that's how far we are in the film as well at this point. We're 33 minutes, 33 seconds. Now that number, mate, that number's got loads of fucking conspiracy behind it, man. It's mad. The number 33 is reported, it's exactly as it turns 33, mate. That if you pause it on, like, go and watch it on Disney, mate, pause it at 33, it's not there. 33, it's there. Go and have a look. The number 33 is reported to be linked to elite paedophilia and the concept of the world being a stage, which we covered a little bit in one of the episodes about life actors. It seems very strange to me that this happens in what was one of the most popular children's films of its time as well. And it's one that stood the test of time as well. I think it was one of the first, if not the first film completely filmed in CGI, so it got a lot of attention. Now, a lot of the Pizzagate theory revolves around the concept of child trafficking. Now, personally, as a person who doesn't have sex with children, I find it difficult to believe that people would risk trafficking children to them when they could just go fuck children elsewhere. It seems like an obvious chance for a paper trail, and it seems quite risky as well to be like, oh, I'll ship the children to me. Quite cocky as well, whereas you could go to them. It just seems odd. But, I mean, that's me. You know, I'm just thinking, you know, thinking that. Yeah, right, so if we read the slogan of the company as well, it says, serving your local star clusters. So could the elites be the elites because their families have been collecting children to palm off, to give to aliens as a food source? Children are very emotional, innit? They cry, they scream and all that, so that's what we've learned extra-dimensional creatures over the years. That's what we've learned they want as their favourite food, is sadness and fear, that emotional vibration. Could the children be getting rounded up to be shipped off-world as an overpriced snack? But before I get wrapped up in all this sex abuse stuff, we need to change the topic a bit. So let's have a song. This is Use This Gospel by Ye, Eminem and DJ Khaled. It really starts to drive the idea of dinosaurs home and dinosaurs being oil. Now, you start to see lots of pictures of dinosaurs, and underneath it, it just says oil in big letters under dinosaurs. And they're talking about a non-existent spaceship. It feels like they're showing us that once everyone believes in dinosaurs and dinosaurs becoming oil, then it'll be really easy to make people believe that space exists and space travel's possible and something that exists. If anything, though, with the links to child sex trafficking in the pizza van, which is the spaceship in this instance, and the dinosaur being shown as fuel, could they be saying that the children are the fuel for space travel, or maybe time travel if you like? It's hard to believe that grounding up kids and pouring them into an engine would facilitate space travel, but maybe it's more about the chemicals inside of kids, the ones in the brain that seem to make them more likely to see ghosts maybe and invisible friends and make friends with invisible entities. Maybe absorbing that chemical as an adult helps politicians and celebrities reach ethereal destinations or facilities full of interdimensional creatures, and maybe it facilitates interdimensional travelling because we're being shown loads and fucking loads of cans of oil at this point with dinosaurs stamped on it with a spaceship and pizza symbology. And surely, right, if we believe the so-called science that megafauna juice can power a motorbike, then it's only a short hop, skip and a jump to believe that the chemicals of a child can be used to power some other form of machine. We're also told that oil is formed under extreme pressure. Now we take this to be literally from the weight of the earth crushing down on the dinosaurs, which is weird, isn't it? If all this dirt is on top of dinosaurs, then maybe the dinosaurs only looked so big because the Earth was a lot smaller back then before all the cosmic dust landed here, smothering the dinosaurs. Anyway, my point is that maybe the pressure is more figurative. Like in the, you need to, pressure makes diamonds, hey? And you say to someone who's fucking living outside of fucking, sleeping outside of Sainsbury's or whatever on the street, like, oh, pressure makes diamonds, lad, here's 50p. Maybe it's more figurative like that. The pressure could be the sorts of pressure applied to children through projects like MKUltra, where they did rape children and people and drug them and promote trauma within the children so they could later control their minds. Maybe it's that kind of pressure that will make the kids' brains excrete all the good chemicals for the interdimensional travel, and it's bottled up. Or maybe the kids are sent to the buyer riddled with their little PTSDs, ready to be tapped and sold off by the shot. They just stick a little little one of them things you have on a bar, you know, where you just push the cup up to it. You push the cup up on the brain and it excretes this chemical, and you have a little shot of that, and you're like, oh, or you mix it in with a bit of Coke or a Pepsi or whatever's available. You know, it doesn't really matter, does it? You're not there to drink the soft drink, you're there to drink the child chemicals. Now, the pizzas are being delivered in red packets, right? These red packets look an awful lot like what our politicians carry around to important meetings, and the child abuse stuff is really starting to add up now in Toy Story. We see Buzz get in the van and use a seatbelt to show that it's safer to use a seatbelt rather than being in the back of the van, but the seatbelt seems specifically made for small users, possibly a way to normalise putting children in booster seats in cars, a rule that came into place in the early 2000s for anyone under a certain height, a punishable offence for now. In our time now, 2023, as I'm recording this, if you don't buy it, you've got to buy an extra seat for a seat you already own from Big Seat, Big Chair. Supernova as words get flashed on the screen, which is another space reference that can be used to control and scare the public. The idea, the concept of a sun exploding, not just our life source getting depleted, but actually blowing up, imploding on itself and destroying most of the known solar system, whatever's around it, you know, just fucking decimating it all, mate, which you need to believe in if you believe in dinosaurs. Because if you do believe in dinosaurs, you can't pick and choose which bits of science is true. You can't say to yourself, supernovas don't exist, that could never happen. Solar flares, that can't happen. Solar flare can't hit Earth, and, you know, with a mass coronal ejection can't happen and make telephones all start ringing each other with no one on the other end of it. That's impossible. But dinosaurs, Spinosauruses, mate, they exist, which I've got some teeth of, by the way, which I'm going to have in frames. Don't know if they're real Spinosaurus teeth. I bought them as real ones, but I don't know what I believe, man. Sound like a bit of a charlatan there myself, but they look cool anyway, and it's a nice idea to have a monster. Either way, it's a monster's tooth. If Spinosauruses didn't exist, maybe they were just monsters. You can imagine it's a dragon's tooth, if you like. If you want to, you really want, you can imagine it could just be a giant's, you know, part of a giant's fingertip. I don't know, you know. But you need to believe in dinosaurs. That's my point. You have to believe in dinosaurs because dinosaurs make oil. And you have to believe in supernovas because that's also basically a chemical reaction occurring, which is what's causing the oil. It doesn't... If you pick it all apart as individual bits, it doesn't make sense. But because you believe in one, it's a yes ladder, mate. That's all it is. It's like you're trying to sell someone something they don't want to buy. Oh, you need this. Yeah, you need this. Yeah, you need this. Yeah. You also need 5 years of antivirus software then, don't you, mate? That's all it is. That's all science is, mate. But even though we know, this is what bothers me, man. This is what gets to me. We know that the oil isn't made of dinosaurs. It's supposedly plankton now. That's what it says when you look it up. It's not made from crushed up dinosaurs. It's made from plankton. It's made from algae, which means it's not even that expendable. It can be constantly made. Surely that's what that means. But no, it's made from dinosaurs, and there's only so many dinosaurs because all the dinosaurs are dead, apart from crocodiles, which are still dinosaurs. Mental. None of it makes any sense, but I'm getting really taken away from this now. And I probably sound quite emotional while I'm speaking about it, but I'm not. Truth be told, I've been recording this now for nearly 3 hours. I've edited it down, and, you know, but let's carry on. Woody then gets hit by a toolbox, and this seems important because of all the stigma around getting a trade-based job I witnessed as a child and teenager. Everything for children was geared towards sending us to university and college. So for a child to see one of their heroes, Woody the sheriff, getting flattened by a toolbox is a nice little subliminal message into the child's brain in the 90s to put them off pursuing a career as a tradesman, a job that will help them with their personal life. It'll make them physically strong because they're always on the feet and handling stuff and picking stuff up and walking around, breathing in fresh air, albeit a bit of dust but fresh air. They'd have their own business, which is a bit of autonomy. That's not what they want, mate. They don't want children having that. They want children to work in offices. So they scared them by getting Woody to be flattened by a toolbox. You'll see loads of stuff like this in kids' films, mate. Loads of it. Woody's also made to look like he's in some way mentally ill, or deficient if you like. After the incident with the toolbox, he goes gauze-eyed, can barely walk, and he's got this weird, undeserved smirk on his face like he doesn't know what's going on, which is another vicious attack on the plasterers, plumbers, painters, carpenters and brickies of our world, mate. Just an unwarranted fucking malicious slant on them. Because they're not like that. they're pretty switched on, mate. If an electrician came to your house, right, and he's sort of like not looking at you, he's one eye's wandering round and that, and you was to think like, oh, hello, like that to you, you're probably going to think to yourself, I get the feeling, mate, you're not that good with wires. I get the feeling you've probably done this wrong once and you've fucking ruined your brain. You're not going to hire him. And this is what this is doing. It's making people not trust them, which is mental, because they probably want to get rid of all these things so everything can be 3D printed, and they can get rid of these industries and they can mass produce 3D printed fucking bricks and things like that can just slot together like Lego. That's probably why there's such a big uptake now in Lego in the world. Oh, we'll get all the kids liking Lego, and then we'll start building houses like Lego, and people can just build their own house rather than hiring a brickie, a carpenter, a plumber, a plasterer, because then it eradicates them jobs and gets rid of more autonomy within people. We then see Woody holding a paper cup whilst he's a bit delirious still, and Buzz then starts putting words, mate, into Woody's mouth about using the paper cup, a way to make children a little bit more accepting of recycling, I think, which is bound to be a multi-billion industry by now. Definitely got to be a multi-billion dollar industry, if not multi-billion pound industry. The way that supposedly recycling, right? I've read stuff that says you recycle stuff at home, let's say in England, that then gets shipped somewhere to be sorted, which then gets shipped somewhere else, which gets sold off to somewhere else, and it's all travelling around the fucking world, mate, rather than just being incinerated in your local area. Because you get posh people going, I don't want an incinerator around here, it's bad for us, we don't want this, it'll bring house prices down. So like, no worries, mate, we'll send it to India, we'll send it to China, we'll do it, and then they'll send it back to us, we'll buy it back from them once it's been sorted and made into other stuff. It's mental, and that's just this just seems like a way of getting this into kids' heads about recycling and making them accept it. But then, what we see is the characters use paper packaging in order to infiltrate a facility known as Pizza Planet. It's guarded by these massive robots that just seem to completely ignore the paper packaging. Could this be a way to tell kids that paper packaging is going to keep them safe for the introduction of man-made global warming as a concept around the same sort of time Toy Story was released, or at least gaining popularity? Because look at it now, like, look how accepting people are of paper straws, mate. They're shit. They don't do a job. They do not do the job effectively. They just melt and crumble as you use them. But we all lap it up. We all accept it. There's not someone getting about selling plastic straws. There should be. Like in the gold mining thing, people were selling shovels. They did better than the people digging up gold. There should be people stood outside Mackey's and Burger King and Pizza Hut, fucking KFC or whatever, selling plastic straws. Going, yeah, lad, 20p for a plastic straw. Fuck that paper one off, it's shit. 10p, here, 10p, it cost them half a penny each. 5p a straw, with a little fucking card machine. They'd make a fortune, mate. Just because these places have decided we're not doing that because we're whatever. There's a load of shit, man. I don't buy into that at all. The world won't destroy us, right? They're saying, if we cut all of its trees down to make paper. Again, harking back to when we was talking before about the Amazon. That's gone now. We're no longer scared of cutting the Amazon down, because we now need to cut more of the Amazon down, in effect, to make all these paper straws. But the world will destroy us if we siphon the liquid that was left over by the giant lizards that were here 60 million years ago. I also get the feeling as well with this that they're trying to tell us about Stargates. Buzz and Woody know that this place is a spaceport, but to all of the regular people that aren't toys, they know that it's a pizza restaurant. Right, so there's two conflicting certainties amongst the creatures of the film, the toys and the people. The people know it's one thing, the toys know it's another. The extra-dimensional entities know one thing about reality, we know another thing about reality. Something else that's weird here is the colours of the logo of Pizza Planet. They almost match the logo for Space Jam, which was a film about aliens taking control of people's bodies and taking people's abilities out of their bodies against their will. That's probably completely unrelated, though. It's probably got nothing to do with it at all. It just seems very similar. We then see some small children playing a game that's called Shooter Attack, which will have been a perfect way for they to promote the idea of gun violence to small children. Small children that would have eventually ended up, start going at each other in maths class in the following years. We see that the Pizza Planet is also covered in what looks like mushroom clouds all over the place. Now, Elon Musk once advised that nuclear bombs would be the best way to make a planet ready for us to live on. But what if something was guiding us, to use the nuclear bombs on Earth during the 1940s, which, tricking us, in effect, to be able to make Earth more hospitable for themselves now, 100 years on nearly. When we see Andy, who, as we remember, is the god creature in the film, we see the letters URL in big letters above his head. So kids will have been focusing on Andy, but slipping into their little brains, right, was preparation for a lifetime on the internet. Woody claims Andy is hyperactive, something that's been shown to be made up by scientists, because scientists have apparently shown that hyperactivity, much like beauty from earlier on, is in the eye of the beholder. A parent, most of the time, will view their kid as hyper because they believe they're going hyper. Maybe, in the sense, in the study that I'm referencing, was a study that was done, I think I heard about it on QI, but I could be wrong, I may have read it somewhere as well. Now, the idea was, in the study, they said to some parents, we've given your kid 2 cans of Coke, and we're going to watch what he does, and the parent watching goes, he's bouncing around all over the place. But actually, all they've done is leave a kid in a room with a very bouncy couch. They've just given him a bit of water. They've given a kid an apple, and he's doing the same, and they have given a kid Coke, and they all just bounce around, mate, because they're kids. But the people are like, they're hyper from the sugar, they're this, they're that, they're that. And there's a part of me that thinks maybe sugar's not even that bad for us. Maybe sugar's actually quite good for us. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, luckily. Anyway, maybe that's a message hidden in the film for the adults that are going to be sat by the kids in the cinema, struggling to keep awake, I imagine, at this point, because it's took nearly 3 hours to get to, this will be 34 minutes into the film, especially if the guy in the cinema room keeps stopping it and then announcing over the tannoy, this bit is about all the child neglect and the child raping and that. It'll be a fucking nightmare. But maybe it'll be a stage show I'll do in the future, who knows? If you want to come and see that, let me know. Anyway, this message seems to be about the hyperactivity, to trick the parent, to get into the parent's head of going, your kid could turn hyper, Your kid could eat all this pizza, then be hyper. Your kid could have fizzy drinks, then be hyper. But what is interesting here is Woody's full description is the kid is in hyperactive hyperdrive. Now this links my observations and solidifies in me. That's a clear link between the emotions of children and the acts of children and how a child feels, the child feels hyperactive, and advanced space travel. Hyperactive, hyperdrive. Because Buzz describes a ship as special if it has access to hyperdrive, and it's only got access to hyperdrive if the kid is experiencing certain emotions. Now, I've just noticed something. Andy has called Woody and Buzz by their names as well, rather than inventing names for them. Now this shows a lack of creativity and could mean, actually, Andy isn't a god. Andy could be a representation of an actual extra-dimensional entity, as they're supposed to be unable to create new ideas. But that's bringing us off track. So let's have a song, and then this week we'll have the Here's How a little bit earlier. This is NF with Happy. We see Buzz enter a spaceship that's filled with clones, so more genetic manipulation stuff, but no moon. He enters through a door that's labelled Prize, and the cloned aliens all have 3 eyes and an antenna. The antenna makes me think they're programmable, almost like greys, because people think greys are like robots and half robot, half creature, if you like a humanoid robot, an android. Maybe it's a way to show that someone either discovered some greys upon an expedition, or maybe they were offered some greys in return for destroying the current system, represented in this film by Woody, and the way that Buzz seems to be replacing his influence on Andy and the other toys. We see the green alien being taken up by the character from next door earlier that was used to introduce the idea of suicide bombers to children, Sid. He's taken with something that's called the Claw, which, with the ties to the threat of suicide bombers and the early parts of the film where Iraq kept getting referenced in the first sort of, 10 minutes of the film, and the war on terror, I can't help but think the Claw could have something to do with Abu Hamza, a fella that was always in the news for terrorism-related reasons a few years after this film. Like this was preparation for him being on the telly. And obviously he had claws or hooks for a hand, at least one hand. I'm not sure if it was both. Now, he was involved with Al Qaeda, an organisation that we're told recruit people, just like how the Claw is choosing the aliens. This might be a bit of a stretch, though, innit? But Sid was using explosives, and Abu Hamza lost his hand because of an explosive. So there are some links there, albeit maybe a little bit tenuous, but there is something there. And all these things happened, or were at least in the news after the release of this film, as if this film was the breadcrumbs for a lot of stuff. This is why I like doing films retrospectively. I might start doing the odd film as it comes out, but obviously it'll be a few months behind, so I'd have to watch it on Netflix or something, but wherever it puts it on. Anyway, we then see that Sid uses the Claw to select Buzz, maybe in order to try and brainwash him, and Woody won't allow it. Maybe a way to relax the more observant parents watching the film so that they can show their children that more conservative views offer safety from extremism. Woody calls the aliens zealots, which is a term often used with religious fanatics and cults, so it seems like my observations about Abu Hamza might actually be founded in reality at this point. And it also shows the children watching that they should work together as a group to try and stop conservative old-fashioned people from interfering with the future, which seems quite dangerous in a way, because if you was to think about it one way, conservative people who are old-fashioned from the past and want to keep it that way are trying to keep a system going that seems to work, whereas other people might want to change it and that might not necessarily work. So obviously you need a balance between the two. You don't want too many of one, too many of another. But here, you definitely need more of one than the other, because otherwise Buzz is going off with the guy that straps bombs to toys, in a very literal sense in the film. But, picking out messages and allegories from the film, there's a lot going on here. We see Sid's wearing a motif similar to the Punisher, or maybe similar to Skull and Bones Society, because it's a skull without a lower jaw. Could this be to show us that there's a skull-based entity, or like Red Skull in Marvel, which gets shown to be in charge of misery, basically, in the Infinity Saga? Someone's got to be sacrificed for Red Skull, and this guy, Sid, who wears the skull, sacrifices toys to an extent, manipulates toys, we're going to see soon. But maybe there's a society that's using popular culture to control us. Maybe a way to show how these people influence popular culture in order to alter how we act. We hear from the alien that the mystic portal awaits, which is a very, very obvious reference to Stargate, isn't it? There's nothing else that could be talking about. So if you read some stuff, it also links to the wars in the Middle East. There's also a 2D drawing of a winged creature at this point behind Woody, Buzz and the alien inside this kid's backpack, which seems like a good way to prepare children for the idea that there are actually multidimensional creatures around, and they exist around us, but we can't see them. Just like how they can't see the bat creature because it's drawn on the surface behind them. Like how, I want to say it was Plato, but I might be wrong, Plato's cave, where... So there is a 3D thing going on, but that's casting a shadow and we see the shadow, but this is like the opposite of that. So there's a 2D thing, but we can't see that because we're in the 3D. Whereas in Plato's thing, it's more like we're observing the 2D, but we can't see the dimension behind us. But anyway, you get the point. Woody takes the Woody and the green alien and Buzz are in a bag, and then Woody speaks to them and says to them, once we go in, we're not going to be coming out, indicating to the viewer, to the more discernible viewer, that these portals might actually only be one-way travel. So maybe the portals are a bit like B&Q, in the way that you can only go in one door and out the other door, maybe. Maybe you can go in one portal and you can go through another portal once you've gone through that portal, but you're not coming out the same place in the car park. So it doesn't matter how close you park to the entrance, you've still got to walk from the exit. Maybe that kind of thing, It seems like this, but I'm not too sure. I mean, when I start thinking about B&Q and that, I start thinking about the ice cream man and stuff. And why does the ice cream man park near the entrance to the shop as well? I know he used to at the B&Q in Stockport. Seems a bad place to park, doesn't it? But now when you think about it, maybe people park quite close to the entrance of it, thinking, I don't have to walk so far, and then that extra 30, 40 yards from the exit of B&Q, they think to themselves, you know what, no, fuck it, I've deserved an ice cream, I've been fucking tricked here, should have parked in the middle of the two doors, but they don't. I mean, it's times like this that I wish I had a co-host, so that I could, say, unlike so-and-so's mum, But I don't know. And the co-host could, fucking, calm me down and be like, "Oh, no, don't be. What are you on about? Shut up." We're a bit like truth seeking in a way, to be honest. Which you can go and listen to. There's episodes of that. And if we get enough listeners on it, we might be able to chuck some built-in adverts in it and make the hosting fees back, which would be lovely. But anyway, regardless, we haven't really got time for me to get all of this information to you. Anyway, this is already a 2-3 part episode at this point, so we don't really have time to say what I think of it, plus what someone else thinks of it all. Anyway, I'm getting lost. Back to the film. Now we're in Sid's house, and whilst we're in there, we've gone through the little porch, we've gone through the front door, and we start seeing more anti-dog propaganda and anti-produce propaganda as well. Almost a way to ready children to be against the idea of their neighbours having crops, right? Because we learn that Sid's dog is called Spud. Plus it goes mental with excitement, barking at the bag of talking toys that Sid is somehow oblivious to, which scarring the children watching the film this, making them believe that dogs are evil and only owned by evil people who wear skulls on the shirts and blow up toys. There's also very, very unusual decor in, is it decor? Decoration, wallpaper, let's call it. As normal people call it wallpaper, innit? The French call it decor. In Sid's house, in his living room and hallway and that. The walls are covered with what look like blades of grass. But that could be a very almost subtle way to represent the weed leaf. Or maybe, possibly, the Canadian flag. The Canadian flag, because Canada is America's neighbour, and America love to scare their people against other people. Plus, it's probably easier for an American to adjust to a Canadian way of life than to a South American way of life, I would imagine. Anyway, the weed symbolism would be a way to demonise drug users at the time in the children's mind, as this was long before decriminalisation and legalisation in America. This was done during a time where American politicians were vehemently against people swearing in songs too. Specifically like rap, even more specifically gangster rap as a subgenre. But weed is something that was heavily featured in that music at the time as well. So this could be another way of making kids scared of drugs. They've got the dog barking in the face, a kidnapping, the talk of one-way portals where you can't get home, the weed symbology, and all of that happens within 4 seconds, mate. You could obviously see it another way though if you wanted to here, and they've given the infinitely cooler kid, Sid, they've given him the dog and the weed stuff. Which, as you get older, when you're not a kid, you probably are going to want to hang around with the guy with the dog and the weed, to be honest, because dogs are cool. And, what sort of teenager doesn't enjoy a bit of weed or, a bit of booze, So that kids might see this, though, now, and want to be Sid. So they might long for a dog, and they've taken the dogs away in the sense of no more puppy farms, only state-bred dogs for you, and so now you've got to buy your dog off the government, with a fucking licence or whatever it is you have to do now. You can't just buy it off fucking Tigbity Dave down the road, who breeds fucking Labradors, Rottweilers and Jack Russells, and sometimes lets them crossbreed and that, where he only gives them out for 50 quid because he don't agree with getting his dog aborted, innit? He's not into that. He's very pro-life, even with dogs. But maybe kids want to be Sid, so that by the time they're 21, they'll be ready to buy legalised cannabis from the local dispensary in America. But who knows, man? I don't know. I didn't make the film, innit? I don't know what they're really up to. We're just there to comment on it and like imagine we've got the script of the film in front of us and I'm just writing annotations. That's all my voice is. If you wanted to, you could probably watch this alongside the film and pause the film as these things are happening, and then you'll hear me talk about it. But we also get shown how well trained this dog is and how capable it is as well. Now, it looks like a bull terrier, which is a sort of very demonised dog amongst most people. Could this been an integral part of the demonisation of dogs? I was always told by my mum growing up that people called Rottweilers devil dogs, but not to listen to them. But now a lot of people have pugs, French bulldogs and other dogs which seem unable to defend their owner, and they also seem intellectually challenged. But not like Spud. Spud isn't, though. Spud's hard, Spud's clever. We then get introduced to Hannah, Sid's little sister, who tells her that her doll Hannah is sick. Tells us, I suppose, or I can't remember. I've just wrote Hannah doll, Hannah is sick. Anyway, even though she isn't, right? She's not sick. Now that's seen to be happening a lot in today's world. It also shows Hannah, this small girl, being verbally aggressive towards Sid. And Sid asks about if his package came in the post, and Hannah gets a bit rude with him, which is now a lovely way of teaching kids that they should fight amongst themselves, especially families, preparing them for a lifetime of the news, telling them civilization is going to collapse and it's only moments away. You know, you're going to be fighting amongst yourselves. The idea of turning families against each other for some form of made-up sickness is you know, the concept of families arguing and turning on each other is over an illness, right? That you know, that's only something conspiracy theorists would claim has been happening for a few years at this point. You know, as of recording, maybe it's worse when this goes out in 2025. Who knows? But it's, you know, that's not something, you know, that was happening back then. I mean, maybe in the 80s it had been happening with AIDS, but not with you know, an illness with what I would imagine would affect young kids anyway. We get a bit more terrorism stuff now, and it says "I heart explosives" on Sid's wall, just as he throws a backpack at it as well. Now that seems like a quick way of normalising the idea of backpack bombers done it in the minds of children. Bear in mind, I think this film came out in 1995, so that wasn't really a thing quite yet, but it was coming. It was going to be all over the news in the early 2000s, all over TV shows, in satire, in comedy, in scary things. But mostly in the mainstream was going to be the idea of backpacks with explosives in and bags with bombs in. That was about to be very fucking normal for people. Maybe it's not that they've got all this stuff planned out years in advance, though. Maybe by doing this sort of things in films, they will it into existence. So maybe the people who make the films want this to happen. They make the iconography, if you like, they put it in there, and they just like, right, we really, really want lads with backpacks who have spent, you know, 15 quid on a nice backpack. We want them to fill it with some form of explosive and then, you know, wreck buses. That's what we want. But we can't tell the people we want this, so we're going to have to trick people and hypnotise them with flashing lights and bright colours and hidden imagery. And maybe that's what this is. Maybe it's the sort of like the laws of attraction or whatever you want to call it. The producers of these films, the illustrators, the writers, they will it into existence. Or maybe when all these films go through, you know, that final thing that we found out about where if a film depicts an explosion or a gun or any form of army thing, and in this, if you remember at the beginning, we had the army guys, the little green army men, so that could be a reference to the army, so the army might get final say on it. Maybe they've got a department where they're like, right, it's a great film, we love it, but what we're going to do is you've left these posters, like we told you, to leave them blank, and we're going to fill them posters in, and then they put in whatever propaganda they want in there to get it into people's heads. Potentially, maybe, I'm not sure. Maybe these organisations or this back room of the CIA or the army manifested the terrorists by teaching children to link rucksacks and explosives. Sid also has a dartboard on his door as well and loads of locks, right? Now, darts is something that's mostly played in pubs around England and probably more so in the north of England, I would imagine. It's not, I don't know if it's, and maybe more in like the further southwest. I can't imagine it being big in London pubs, people playing darts. But I mean, I might be wrong, but I don't think I've ever seen anyone on EastEnders playing darts, but you will see it on Emmerdale, won't you? Them chucking a few darts and Corrie. So, but I don't know if I've ever seen it in EastEnders. There's a lot of talking in that, not a lot of sport. But the pubs have been on the decline, haven't they? Since the smoking ban, which was around 2004, so I was going to say 2024, but that's next year or last year, whenever you're listening to this. But the smoking ban came in around 2004-ish. So by associating darts with the villain of this film, Sid, maybe this was a way of turning kids against the BDO and the BDC. It's a sport that's mostly played by the working classes, isn't it? You don't really need to spend much money on equipment for it, because you can just go into a pub and they normally have darts and a dartboard. If it's even a semi-decent pub, they'll have some darts you can use. And it's got a bit of gambling around it, hasn't it? It makes loads of money through gambling, darts and advertising and drink sales. And it seems weird that they'd want to stop people playing darts, but with all these people selling second-hand speedboats off the back of being mostly mediocre at a sport back now when this film was made, maybe they think, you know, we don't want people thinking, oh, if we get good at darts, we could win a kitchen and share it between the two of us, or we could win a Fiat Punto, and we can split that with the street, and we've all got a means of transport that we've not had to pay for. We just had to answer maybe 15 questions with Jim Bowen and not be put off by Tony Green's stare, you know. And then this might be what convinced the big they, you know, to act on this redistribution of wealth, you know, amongst the working classes based on darts. And it's just another way of cracking down on darts, cracking down on the working class, cracking down on drinking and smoking. And I've got a big thing about smoking. I've just done a little Patreon show about that, and I don't want to get into it too deeply, but what if maybe smoking isn't bad for people? Just as a little thing out there, what if it's actually bad for the micros and it's bad for the person doing it, but it's good for the environment? Maybe it protects us, makes a nice film around the earth that protects us from what scientists call UV rays, but in actuality it might be, you know, unidentified vehicles, you know, rather than UFOs. Maybe they're called UVs, and it protects us against the aliens being able to get into, or the extra dimensional entities from being able to enter our atmosphere or our dimension. Just as a little thought, I'll go into that more in a little daily update on Patreon. Anyway, there's I'm getting really off topic here, but if you are wondering about Patreon, that's patreon.com/worldaroundyou. £3 a month, mate. You get quite a lot of stuff on there that'll help you pickle your brain, stuff that you might find quite nice to smoke to or something like that. But I should also say, this episode is brought to you by Fat Pete's Prints. Fat Pete's Prints is on Etsy, and they sell shirts and that, and you'll see me promoting some of the shirts every now and then, because I got a little bag of goodies off him with some weird shirts, like a shirt with what looks like a paedophile on it. There's another shirt with a woman with a man's head on the wall. There's an MK Ultra goat. They've got stickers as well of dogs' arseholes, so that's Fat Pete's Prints. There's all sorts of stuff on there. Right, getting back into Sid's bedroom though, sneaking back into this child's bedroom. The clock on the wall reads 8:46 or possibly 8:47, which is very strange to me, because that's a collection of numbers you hear a lot with conspiracies. Could it be, right, that these numbers were implanted in children's heads to initiate some form of MK Ultra-like task? Or is it that this very popular film for children, and during the trauma, if you like, of being scared in the cinema whilst watching Sid and being freaked out by him because of the music and what's going on in the film, that maybe that number was subconsciously seeded into the minds of the children watching? What is curious to me though is that there is the word toxic written on the screen as well at this point, which is a word that gets thrown around when males are exhibiting typically masculine behaviour. And so I was wondering, did it start here with Sid? Because Sid is being very masculine here for a little boy. He's got explosives, he's wrecking his sister's toys. He's being a bit artistic as well, which in some people's eyes is a bit fruity, maybe not particularly masculine. But I think he's quite a masculine guy. He's got a Punisher-style shirt on, he's got a bit of a chin to him, and he just seems quite intimidating, which is also another masculine trait. So could it be that they were trying to associate the word toxic with Sid here to try and make kids not want to be like Sid? Maybe make them want to be a bit more like Andy, you know, a bit younger, you know, act younger than your age, keep as a child, speak to toys, have a Bo Peep doll that you play with, and a pig, you know, and a Mr. Potato Head. Buy our things, because Sid's not really buying anything, it seems. Sid seems to just... It looks like Sid robs a lot of stuff and wins other things, because he won Woody and Buzz and these aliens. He didn't buy them. I mean, he must have had to pay a couple quarters or whatever to have a go of the claw, but even so, he's not really spending much, is he? He's not bought as much as what, you know, the other guy as Andy, well, Andy's mum, you know, so that's something to bear in mind. But it also seemed, well, I suppose he's got to be spending money on these explosives somewhere. They can't come cheap. But realistically, are the big they getting the money from the explosives? Do the big they get as much money from the sale of explosives to children as they get from the sale of merchandise? It's a tough one to answer, isn't it? How good would it have been, though, if they had a Toy Story where they were like Toy Story merchandise, where it's like, the new Action Man comes with, you know, fucking half a kilo of I don't know, an explosive. Let's just say C4 because it's on COD. But it comes, like a half a pound, not even half a kilo, half a pound is probably more than enough of an explosive material to give to a child, isn't it? More than enough. They comes with that, and if you buy 2 ounces of explosive from us, get 5 action men and your own backpack. And kids are like, oh my God, yes, just fucking, like being very masculine over it all. But that's not what they want, is it? They don't want that because around the word toxic here is the colour red, which psychologists agree is great for getting into people's minds. And all the words, all of the box with toxic written on it is scrunched up paper and takeaway food containers, right? Which seems to be prepping children to believe that plastic straws are capable of destroying the world. Plastic straws are toxic. Takeaway food is toxic. Now think about takeaway food for a minute. Now, most of the best takeaway food I can think of comes from people that might not be from my country. Now, they could be. This is, maybe they are. But a lot of the time, they seem like they might not be. Now that could be one of the ways of they being a bit, we don't want them making money, do we? Let's stop people buying takeaways. Have you ever thought about takeaway food like that? Where all this stuff about eat healthily. Buy from supermarkets, buy fruit and veg. Don't buy a kebab from abracadabra, or don't go and buy chicken from Chicken Joe's down the road, or stuff like that. Yet still they'll advertise Mackey's, and that's fine to advertise Mackey's and Burger King on the telly, but you can't advertise cigarettes. So it's odd, innit? It's odd that if they're all equally bad for us, why is one okay to advertise? But the plastic straws, right? There's and it's not plastic straws, but and definitely not the fuels emitted as well. They're saying it's all destroying the world. My point is, I'm getting lost in my own little tiny knots in my own words here. My point is, they've got the word toxic. They've got a lad being quite masculine, and around the word toxic is takeaway menus, plastic straws, cutlery, things like that, takeaway food containers, things like that, things that nowadays they're telling us are bad. All of these things are bad. Toxic masculinity is bad. Takeaways are bad. Plastics are bad. Plastic straws are bad. But it's not really the production of these plastic straws that was bad. It's the disposal of the plastic straws. That's what we're told is bad, because we're not told that, because they're never really going to tell us, making plastic stuff is bad for us. It's because that wouldn't blame us. They want to blame us, so we get the blame for the disposal of the plastic straws. But anyway, we've gotten very much lost here, so let's have a song. This is Devlin and Chip, We Don't Try It. So there's a word on the screen now, and that word is...
The GLP-1 pill you've been waiting for is now on Ro. Yep, it's finally here. With the same clinically proven ingredient, now in a pill, and now on Ro. It's the first FDA-approved GLP-1 pill for weight loss at the lowest price available. That's one daily GLP-1 pill for big results. Now on Ro. Go to ro.co/listen to see if you qualify. RX only. Go to ro.co/safety for serious side effects and boxed warning associated with GLP-1s.
Warning. And that's next to a drawing of a cow. Now, this could be one of the earliest bits, at least that I've found, of brainwashing that we've got evidence for amongst the vegan movement. There's another box there that says Fat Cow Farms. So again, whilst the bad guys on screen, they're associating the farming industry, Big Pharma, with an F, just like they did about 12 seconds ago when Spud the dog was barking at the bag. Sid says he's making Janie the doll better by replacing her head with a pterodactyl. Now, this is a bit more evidence of brainwashing towards the acceptance of genetic splicing or manipulation, now which that seems to be in every kids' film, especially all the kids' films that we've covered. But I think we've only had this one bit of genetic splicing stuff in Toy Story, and it's also one of the oldest films I've covered, so could this be one of the first little examples of chucking this in front of kids to make them accept it as a concept and as an idea? It's worth noting as well that at this point in the film, Janie the doll was apparently very ill according to Sid, even though there was absolutely no evidence for that at all. She hadn't coughed or anything, and then she's seen being spliced and cut, cut open and changed, and having body parts replaced with reptilian body parts. So that's like she's been spliced with reptilian DNA. Possibly a way to show us that some people around us that have been in hospital might have been replaced with hybridized versions of themselves, or that they've been experimented on. There's no moon iconography here, so that's a bit weird. It doesn't really fit in. The closest thing we get to a moon reference is immediately after that we then see Buzz, who's the spaceman, and he's peeking through a little hole in the bag. A hole, that could be, you could imagine like the bag's darkness and the little hole is letting the light in like the moon. The moon lets the light in at the night time. So there's a little bit of a link there, but maybe I'm reaching, I'm not sure. The bag itself's covered in drawings of monsters, which could be a way to show us that there's someone or maybe something observing these experiments from a tear of some sort, like they're taking part in an interdimensional peep show in the name of science, as in like science as science, not like science lie to the people, actual science. Because I would argue if you're turning a person into a snake man, that's science. If you're even like Dr. Mephistoing ostriches so that they've got 6 arseholes, that is science in my book. But telling people that the seas are rising because we're putting plastic straws in the oceans which are killing the turtles, that doesn't seem like science to me. Just to be, it seems messing with people and turning them into part Komodo dragon seems a lot more science than perversion in the essence of what a peep show is. So maybe peep show's wrong. I don't know an observational study, let's call it. Now, as Sid leaves, the words wraith and rock monster are written on the wall. Both of these things are supernatural creatures, both possibly made by genetic manipulation, possibly from these interdimensional creatures watching through this tear in space-time that we've just been alluded to there with Buzz in the bag. We see that the pterodactyl head falls off Janie as well, showing us that these alien-human hybrids can be controlled as and when they're needed to be. Then, they're simply disposed of. Once they've gotten out of them what they need, once they've completed the purpose, they're fucked off. Woody uses a torch to look under a bed, and then we see that these hybridized creatures are illuminated and they're coaxed into the light, something that a lot of religious people and hippie types talk about online. Could this be a way of trying to make people want, say, the DNA of a massive spider or a sandhill crane melded into their DNA so that they can become, quote, enlightened beings? There's no definite answer for that, unfortunately. I guess only time will tell. And if by the time, this episode comes out, there's been more Mothman sightings or something, maybe that's something we need to look at, and saying, yes, that is what's happening. Do you know what I mean? One thing that most of these creatures seem to have like a link, something between them all, if you like. They all seem to represent modes of transport. There's a skateboard. There's a jack-in-the-box that has pictures of trains and boats on. There's a pair of legs with a crane attached to them. There's a head on a roller. Now, that roller also has pictures of farmyard animals. So there's more anti-farming propaganda. Flatten the cows, flatten the sheep. Squash them numbers, squash the cows down, squash them so that there's less and less. There's also a frog with car wheels as well. They're all personal transport, these things, and they're seen as the villains of the film at the moment. There's a skateboard is just for one person. They don't like that anymore. It's dangerous, can't ride a skateboard on the pavement. You can't get about in a steamroller, really, because it's bad for the roads. You can't, you get the point, you can't have your own car. By 2030, we won't even have 5 more years when you hear this. Apparently, we won't have petrol cars. So that could have started with this, but it's hard to tell. None of these things seem battery powered though. So maybe I'm clutching at straws again. It's a little bit of an esoteric part of the film, I suppose, here. A little bit harder to grasp at what's going on. But there is some definite things here. Like, are the filmmakers, are they trying to make all these things, these toys, scary, and the idea of personal transport scary to try and make children believe the propaganda in 15 years' time about how they should all get buses to save the planet? All coincidentally, at the same time that bus fares magically increase after they've spent 15 or so years convincing children that they need to get the bus more, don't own a car, get the bus. And then trying to prepare them for, what would be back then 35 years' time from when the film came out to when normal cars, like what we consider now normal cars, are going to be made illegal. Buzz describes the other toys as cannibals as well, further making the children scared of privately owned transport and the freedom of movement. Andy recognises that Woody's gone and the mum immediately disbelieves him. Another trope to get children ready to fight their parents, like a Civil War kind of fight your family thing. Because the siblings, like the sibling stuff, we saw him and his sister, Sid and Hannah, arguing and that to show that families don't get along. And this all now seems to be about disrupting the family unit at this point in the film. You stop family members from visiting each other by getting rid of cars, and then you make them not want to meet up for Sunday dinner because no one can agree what they should all eat because the meat eaters have been vilified by the animation industry for the past 40 years and they don't even want to meet up with each other at the risk that they'll be sold out by their big brother and shipped off to aliens to have genetic modification experiments conducted on them. No wonder the world's the way it is, mate. Then we see Bo Peep and Slinky the dog. They're the ones that are still on Woody's side. So what we see there, who Woody's still the villain in the eyes of the toys in Andy's room, remember? And who's on Woody's side? Who's on the villain's side? A self-employed woman, she's working class, she's a sheep farmer, and a dog mate. These are the characters in the film siding with the treacherous police officer. That's propaganda, mate. They're trying to take your dogs off you. They don't want you to be self-employed. They don't want people farming sheep and that. Or a shepherd. You could even argue that's the idea of the shepherd because of the crook in her hand. The idea could be an anti-religious thing because a lot of religious leaders are described as shepherds. There's all sorts, mate, to be seen here. We see Sid start to interrogate Woody, asking about a rebel base, asking him, where is it and all this? I can't remember exactly, but he's telling him that he's got ways of making him talk. Then he starts to use his magnifying glass to burn the toy's forehead, right about where they reckon the pineal gland is on people. So Sid's now using what seems to be a frequency weapon, using light frequencies to affect the will of his prisoner, to make his prisoner say and do what he wants them to do. Woody forces Buzz to act in a certain way by tapping his spine as well, like the Archons. But we could also interpret this as someone has attacked Woody's brain and then made him use another person in order to make him commit acts of violence. There's a lot to unpack in this bit here. There's increased frequencies directed at the brain, resulting in him getting control of another being to make that being fight a crowd of monsters. It's all very fucking bizarre and it's hard to get your head around here. Like, what are they trying to put in your kids' heads here? What are they prepping us for here? Like, because if you remember in the 90s when you were at school, they're constantly telling you that God's going to come back and he's going to kill us all, and then while we're all dead, he's going to line us all up as goats and sheep, and then if the goats will be killed and the sheep will be taken to heaven. So that seems like monsters, doesn't it? What's a goat to a sheep? It's a fucking monstrous sheep, innit? It's just a monsterized version of a sheep. It's got horns and that and scarier eyes and less fluffy fur. Now, if you think back to an episode I did a while back about Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, there was an awful lot of taxidermy in the introductory scene to one of the villainous children. And now, as we explore Sid's house, we start to see a crabbing line, which is something that you can use to get yourself food from the sea. Though more importantly, right, as a taxidermist, we see a stag's head on the wall. Now, hunting is a fantastic way to provide for yourself and your family with food without relying on corporations. But in this film, it almost seems that any form of meat eating seems to can be completely villainized. We then get showed synchronicity, right? Buzz has been calling Star Command, a thing that Woody's been telling him doesn't exist. Then the TV seems to talk to Buzz like something out of some form of fucking horror film, claiming to be Star Command itself, almost like something's playing with Buzz and his feelings, like he's some sort of plaything, some form of greater powers entertainment. Like that could be what's happening to us, mate. We have little things, little tiny little breadcrumbs through our lives, and then all of a sudden we're activated by the TV. Buzz seems to be learning that he's a toy, right? And this seems important for the film. It's almost like when you're a kid, right? And you get taught, let's say taught, as in the same sense of science. You get taught about God and about how anything's possible when you realise it's all a lie. By the time you get to 28, you realise you're barely what makes a person, let alone being capable of flying or firing a laser out of your wrist. Do you know what I mean? Then we see Buzz realise that he's a toy, right? And that he was made for the entertainment of a being that he can't even comprehend. A being that he instinctively hides from. The human beings. How do we know that we don't do this? There'd be no way to tell that we hide or go into stasis when a certain creature's present and is using our body. We also learn as well here of the filmmaker's political views, because it says that Buzz was made in Taiwan. That's printed on him. Now, this seems mental considering there are literally more than 1 billion people who deny Taiwan's existence, and even more people who are completely agnostic towards its existence. Right? But when our stasis would be sleep, wouldn't it? Thinking about it, that's what our stasis would be. We go into sleep. We have to sleep and disappear. What is it we're hiding from? We're clearly hiding from something, and we become inactive when that thing's near. We call it sleep. We rest in that time when it's night time. When we can't see what it is. Just like these toys can't see the humans properly, can they? They're not supposed to, it doesn't seem. Anyway, we see that Buzz doubts what his creators have told him, and he tries to test his own limitations, this time showing that no matter how much you believe in something, it will never happen for you. Now, is this really the message that you want to send to your children? Let's have another song. This is Geico, Joel Ortiz and Easy Banks for The Culture. We see that Buzz falls down to earth as he already has earlier in the film, but this time he loses his left hand. Now that feels symbolic, innit? In Christianity, you have to accept the host in your left hand and feed it to yourself with your right hand, and now Buzz is completely incapable of that. Left hands are actually also seen as demonic in the eyes of the church, which to me seems strange because you do have to take the host from your left hand and feed yourself with the right. You have to, your left hand over your right hand and eat from the left with the right, which if your left hand is where the demons reside, where the devil resides, surely you'd want to hold it in your right, but maybe you counteract that by taking it with your right. I'm not sure. We never got that explained to us at school or at church. Plus, there's this whole right-hand path, left-hand path magic that we're not going to get into yet, but the left-hand magic seems, I think, off the top of my head, is about like Aleister Crowley and that sort of mentality of do as thou wilt. So do what you want, and that's the right thing to do. It the quickest way, get there as soon as you can, magic wise. Doesn't matter what you do, just get there. Whereas right-handed be more, I think, ritualistic and like practiced magic and ceremonious. Whereas I think left-hand is just bumming a slave in the desert until you can speak to extra dimensional entity in the sand. Just as a way to help you understand what I'm getting at there, but we're not gonna get into that yet. I think you also put your right hand on the Bible as well in an American courtroom, at least on the American courtroom dramas, the TV shows and that, to show the judge and the jury that you're not full of shit. But the young girl Hannah discovers a broken Buzz on the floor. Now it's probably unrelated, but the people are terrifying in this to look at. They're just weird looking, like it's proper Uncanny Valley kind of looking people. Hannah's eyes, like Jimmy Neutron looking people. Hannah's eyes are like an animal's eyes, like a not like a goat's eyes, but they've got that animalisticness to them. If animalisticness is a word, an animalistic style to them. We also see that the people are capable of hearing the voices of the toys, possibly, right, something to do with the portal the alien mentioned when they entered the house, the little green guy. Maybe it's the hole in dimensions allowing them to hear the toys. There's been more of the green leaves on the walls as well, but now it's easier to tell that they're probably supposed to be some form of bamboo. And then add to that the made in Taiwan that we saw printed on Buzz, and Hannah's headless tea party, where they're only pretending to drink tea, and where so there's not actually any tea, and 60% in attendance are unable to drink the tea. This seems like a fucking pretty strong political statement, a statement that I don't understand fully, but someone much smarter than me may be trying to sway the public opinion about the Chinese with this. We then see that the tea is having an intoxicating effect on Buzz Lightyear. So are they saying that tea is the Chinese people's revenge for opium? You could argue a lot of people in England are addicted to tea. Tea is seen as a very Chinese thing for some reason, and we as a nation, well, I say we, I think it was more so actually the Americans. I'm pretty sure it was the Americans tricked a load of like Chinese people that they had living there who built the railroads and stuff for them. All of America's Chinese slaves. They then got them all addicted to opium so that they couldn't rise up and build their own infrastructures and build their own economies and stuff like that. So maybe this is a little way of saying the Chinese are using tea to get back at the Western world. Again, I'm not sure. I'm just here to comment on. I'm a commentator. I'm saying what I see. I'm not saying what things mean. I'm saying what they could mean, what I think they could mean, but it doesn't mean that's what they mean. You know, there's some stuff as well that seems to be associating transgender identity with some form of mental illness, because Buzz keeps saying that he's Mrs. Nesbit because he's wearing a hat, and then he starts maniacally cackling. Now, I'm surprised the SJWs haven't had this one struck off of Disney because of this scene, or tried to get this scene removed. If anything, if you think about it, if anything, the lack of SJWs screaming on Twitter about this is evidence enough for me personally that the animators are the people brainwashing the children. Otherwise, if they weren't being programmed to say and do these things, the SJWs on Twitter would have already picked up on this and would have had this Mrs. Nesbit scene struck off and removed from Toy Story. We then have Buzz say that he's just a little depressed whilst he holds his own arm, teaching children at a very young age about depression and potentially and self-harm, because he's holding his own arm and his arm's injured and he's saying I'm depressed. So getting the idea that they could maybe cut themselves, might be a bit of a push there, you know, to get to that. But it's putting, again, planting the breadcrumbs, planting the seeds, dropping the little breadcrumb trails all the way back to the witch's oven, innit? It could be potentially adding to the current mental health crisis that we've got at the minute. We're seeing that Buzz is currently physically disabled whilst also saying he's depressed, which seems to be a way of linking the two. It could also be playing with the English language to suggest that it's harmless to be depressed because he's got his arm off, he's harmless, you know what I mean? It's harmless to be depressed. Even more than that though, maybe children would actually want to be depressed just like their hero, Buzz Lightyear. Buzz now knows he's a toy, but for some reason he still has memories of being a space ranger, or at least being in the Space Ranger Academy. It's unclear, which seems to be like a hint to say there are hidden memories accessible to people, such as past lives, and regressional hypnosis could work in order to be able to access this hidden knowledge. We then see Ham and Mr. Potato Head having a game of battleships, both sides of Big Pharma, the vegetable growers and the meat industry going head to head in a battle of wits, luck and strategy. Might be worth noting that Ham is also wearing the potato's hat too, so they are attempting to look like each other, possibly in a means to fool the public. Maybe this is a way to show the public that the vegans are actually plants for the meat industry, making more people, or making at least normal people, not want to associate with vegans, meaning that they'll buy more meat out of protest against what they deem veganism to be, which would massively impact the growers of vegetables by making the plant eaters look crazy and encouraging the world to make more meat and eat more meat and make more things out of meat purely out of spite, rather than just because meat tastes better than most vegetables. I tried pak choi the other night for the first time. It's fucking rank meat. It was with some Korean barbecue I cooked. It was fucking disgusting. I couldn't eat it. It was vile. I managed to eat about half of what I'd made, and I was like, I now that's enough food for me to not feel hungry for the rest of the day. I'm not going to eat the rest. Mr. Potato Head, right, is playing and with Ham, as I said. And every time he loses to Ham, he pays him with body parts. This seems like a way of preparing children to become sex workers. Rich people love sex workers, so it makes sense that they would use the most recognisable toy in the world to convince children to sell their body parts to the rich banker, aka Ham the piggy bank. Whilst in the house that promotes terrorism, next door, promoting terrorism to the youth, we see a disillusioned Buzz using his arm like a plane, swinging it through the air, going like that, followed by an explosion as the plane is downed, which could be a little allusion to 9/11, but it's a very loose allusion if it is. Mr. Potato Head doesn't want the sheriff coming back and won't help him if he come home, and regain control of the room. He doesn't want it. So if Mr. Potato Head is the embodiment of agriculture and farming, and now that I think I can say that he can change his appearance very easily as well. So maybe this is some way of showing the medical industry with plastic surgery. Either way, he doesn't want the sheriff coming back. He wants the toys to be against the police officer because then he can have more control over the room than what he used to have. Could this be a way to show us that corporations and the letter organisations are using their power to influence people's opinions over law enforcement? It seems to be something America experiences an awful lot, and with this sort of theme in films, it's quite easy to understand why this would occur. We see again that the established leaders of the world that we're seeing here, will show people what they want to see and say what people want to hear them in order to keep control. Buzz has his arm off, right? And Woody uses it to show the group that Buzz is okay, waving with it through the window so that people over the way can see that Buzz is alive and Buzz is okay. Buzz isn't okay. The spaceman's lost his arm and he's gone delirious thinking it's a plane, and he thinks he's Mrs. Was it Mrs. Keegan? He thinks he's Michelle Keegan or something. I can't remember. Mrs. Pfister. I can't remember the name he said he thought he was, but he thought he was a lady anyway. Lady Buzz Ladyton. Now that's only half true that Buzz is okay, but Woody's lying. Woody's showing the people what they want to see in order for them to still trust Woody. But that's what he needs to do in order to keep his power, to get that power back from Mr. Potato Head and Ham. Now after Mr. Potato Head manages to sway the room to abandon Woody completely, we hear Ham say, "Go back to your lives, citizens," as if the banking conglomerates will be in control if and when the police fail. The transport group from Sid's bedroom start to surround Buzz and then help to repair him, establishing the future, or at least taking part in the future being space travel. This shows that the companies that are involved in cars and fossil fuels might help the police to keep control, as they're all dependent on each other, though they may not actually realise it at the time until there's a lot of trouble going on, It's still showing children to be scared of these organisations, though, as Woody's getting aggressive and the abominations are quite creepy looking. Maybe that's something that we're starting to see, though, in modern day. Like, as I keep saying, this episode won't be out till 2025, but in 2023, as I record this, we keep having massive industrial strikes, and that's not really all that long after the people in America started to turn on the police during lockdowns. We then learn that the abominations aren't actually evil like we were led to believe. So we've been lied to. They were actually just helping the toys. They were helping Woody and Buzz. Just like it's possible for the world that they'll all realise fossil fuels aren't bad and aren't evil, and that burning wood to stay warm isn't evil like we're being constantly conditioned to believe. Maybe there are other powers moving in the shadows, or in a secular B story, like Ham and Mr. Potato Head pulling the strings to make society believe what they need them to believe, so that they can make even more money and become even more powerful, maybe removing the power from the police and the fossil fuels companies. There's then been a lot of Chinese sentiment as well in the film at this point, and I remember learning for an episode of Truth Seeking that the Chinese have multi-storey farms for pigs, so that'd be another avenue of production that they could control, whereas America seems to control oil and fossil fuels, so by funding slanderous campaigns against fossil fuels, the court of public opinion could be swayed enough so that when something does happen, maybe, some form of ecological disaster brought on by some form of potentially Chinese HARP weaponry or something like that. Not, I think HARP's like a brand name, but weather weaponry or a weather modification technology, the public will be ready and willing to believe that the fossil fuel companies and the car drivers were behind it all, not the people that were getting the bus, not them, not the bus drivers and all the bus companies driving empty buses round at 3 o'clock in the morning with nobody on them apart from a bus driver and a couple of pissheads. No, not them. It's the people driving cars to go to work. They're the people that are bad. There's a little bit more anti-American sentiment as well now in Sid's room. He receives this massive firework in the post from a company called Illegal, like as in like so like ill as in that's ill, or as in they're not particularly well, they're a bit poorly, them mate, and eagle as in the caw kind of bird. Now the bald eagle is the symbol of America, innit? So they now have a pro-terrorist child with wordplay to insinuate that something is very wrong with America. I wonder how many domestic terrorist instances occurred because of this film. Like, they like to blame the Turner Diaries for the Oklahoma City bombings. What if it was because of Toy Story, mate? What if it was Toy Story, watching Toy Story, that led... oh, bollocks, what's his name? How can I remember the Turner Diaries and not the guy's name? Again, I can't remember his name. Tell me in the Discord or underneath wherever I've posted this. God, what was his name? It wasn't Ted. I always think it's Ted. It's not Ted. Doesn't matter. Oh, bollocks, that's going to really do me head in. Okay, I always forget his name. But anyway, they say he was inspired by the Turner Diaries, but but you know, what if it was Toy Story? What if it was little bits like this in kids' films, you know? Now, just as I'm writing about weather manipulations, a few seconds pass in the film, and suddenly, right, there's a thunder and lightning storm outside as it's pissing it down so Sid can't fire Buzz into space on a firework. This almost shows that there is someone controlling the behaviour of Sid. The timing wasn't right for the explosion that he's preparing for, so he's been postponed by a power much greater than himself. Sid seems to somehow be aware as well that Woody's able to come to life because he's weighted the crate down so that he can't escape now. This could be showing us that there are people on Earth with insider knowledge on different entities, and also showing us a way to trap them. The crate's got holes all around it so that Woody can be constantly observed. Potentially, under the right circumstances, he might never be able to come to life because there could always be someone watching him. Now, there's very little in the world, in the real world at least, like this, apart from supposedly an electron. Maybe if we constantly observe an electron, you can use it to influence the world in some way or another. Maybe that's why there's now so many CCTV cameras. Everything's constantly being observed. Maybe that's why crimes tend to happen in CCTV blind spots, because the electrons and or evil entities are able to act freely there rather than doing what they're supposed to do. Maybe the whole point of Toy Story is to make children accept that CCTV cameras are going to be everywhere, that cameras will be in everything, everywhere, in the phones, computers, Nintendo consoles for whatever reason, and even hidden in the screens of the televisions. Buzz has learnt that he's now powerless and is nothing more than a device to be used by the controlling powers of the world in order to further industrial humanity and turn people to a new way of thinking. Woody himself, as a character, seems to have stood for colonialization, and so does Buzz in a way. Woody stands for the colonialization of Mexico and expansion of America, whilst Buzz seems to stand for the colonization of space, even though he now knows that it's nothing but a metaphorical and literal toy. He's powerless from being sent into space to complete the mission assigned to him. It's gonna happen. Sid's gonna send him up there. We see that Woody is held prisoner with the interrogation handbook behind him. Now, why would Sid have that? Why would Sid have a US Army interrogation handbook if it wasn't to show that he's some form of representative of an American organisation, or maybe a neighbouring country of America that is at the very least handlers or let's call them brainwashers to make terrorists? We see the moving van arrive as well now for Andy, which represents danger, and that is the name Eggman Removals or Eggman something, and that seems like another way of tying danger and bad emotions with animal and trauma. Really, moving house is traumatic, isn't it, for a kid? And they're tying that in with the animal-related produce. Eggs. Scaring kids against eggs by making them think we're going to take you away from your friends. We're going to make you move. We're going to make you move house. We're going to lose your toys. Eggs. 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 Fried eggs, poached eggs, boiled eggs. Eggs Benedict. Cakes. Milk. Everything. Everything's there. Burgers. All constantly in the film. Whenever anything bad happens in this film, there's something there to do with animal produce, mate. It's fucking weird, and I don't know how anyone isn't seeing it. It seems like they just want to make every child watching Toy Story susceptible to the vegan propaganda. That's how it feels. We then see that tools are used to free Woody, or at least the movement of tools in a toolbox. Tools seem like a really good way as well to symbolise communism, because, like a hammer and a sickle are both tools associated with communism, and communism and socialism is something that a lot of young people seem to bum off at the minute, innit? They're all bumming off it. It's constant online. Oh, socialism, all this shite. Here we see the toolbox, presumably, right, filled with at least hammers, being used to free Woody, but also used to crush Woody, the representation of the current leading powers in the world, like police and government. The word gasoline flashes up and is then followed by several iterations of the word warning and danger, which are somewhat synonymous with each other. It's more ways of associating the use of petrol and danger, petrol and bad things, preparing a generation of people to turn their backs on owning their own cars, dismantling their own country's economy and refusing to buy fuel for the cars. I should point out as well that the toolbox that we're being shown is red, which is a colour very much associated, at least in my mind, with communism. We then see that the one who literally pushes the box, is Buzz. Buzz literally pushes the communism box as well, which might be a way to seed the idea of space communism, a concept where everyone from Earth is shipped out to other planets to start colonising them as farmers and miners, but in effect they're just slaves to be sort of like harvested and made into, especially on Mars, the idea that people are going to be sent there with the prospect of being farmers and miners, but they're just going to use machines, but they need to send the people there to harvest their piss and blood and tissue in order to mix it with the dirt from Mars to make concrete, a special type of Martian concrete, which we spoke about as well on Truth Seeking quite a while back now. Woody the copper attempts takeoff now to try and help Buzz, but once again gets attacked by Spud the dog. More anti-dog sentiment, right? But it is called Spud, but we've also got the potato stuff, so maybe they're being overt here with calling the dog Spud, so that we think, oh, the bad guy is Spud the dog, when Spud means potato, doesn't it? But actually, Mr. Potato Head seems to be the villain, because he's the one trying to insidiously take control of the toys. We get a little bit of mythology as well here at this point. Woody turns to the abomination toys in Sid's room for help. Now, they mostly represent various modes of transport, like I said before, but what if there's more to it than that? There's a mantid-looking creature that seems like he's half man, half insect. There's a bird-like man, but there's also the spider-like creature. Now, there's Native American myths or legends about a spider queen. There's also that spider queen in Lord of the Rings, Shiva or something like that. And I'm pretty sure there are other spider queen references in lots of other stories, myths and legends. Like in Mass Effect, you've got the Arachne Queen, which is like this massive spider lady that you can turn to for help against evil. It seems like it's a trope that's repeated throughout popular culture, as if someone somewhere, right, is trying to tell us that in times of need, if you really want to, you can turn to the Spider Queen from the Hollow Earth if you really need help against evil. Woody speaks of having to break a few rules, right? Implying that these creatures that exist around us without our knowledge are aware of some form of law of existence, maybe a natural law, I'm not sure, maybe some form of intergalactic treaty, though, if these do represent aliens, maybe some form of interdimensional playbook that allows for the existence of a multitude of creatures to coexist side by side in their own overlapping realities, as a time check for those wondering, right, with the film as well, so you know how much left of the film. We've still got half an hour of the film to go. So let's have another song. This is Yelawolf and Shooter Jennings with Rock and Roll Baby. We see that the rocket launch was just a firework, a sick sort of game of make-believe that Sid takes part in to damage the future plans of the world. Could this be Pixar's way of trying to tell us that NASA is trying to control the future of the world, or at least trying to dictate the future of the world by using Buzz Lightyear to focus the people of Earth on the idea of space, like tunnel visioning us at space rather than focusing on the interdimensional entities or the realness of the tangibility of the hollow earth. The abominations of Sid's room just willingly follow Woody's orders, and they ring the doorbell to cause a distraction. Now, a doorbell is something that's next to a door that was described by the green alien as a portal. No one's watching the door, so these creatures are able to interact with it in a way that interferes with human life. Could this be one of the reasons for introducing doorbell cameras to the world, a way to protect us against interdimensional and supernatural intruders? There's always been the myth of having to invite vampires into your home to give them power. Maybe you have to open the interdimensional door in some way to allow the entities powering your life. Like how you have to know a demon's name in order to have dominion over it, which I think we did cover in an episode about the devil. So by having these cameras on your front door, it ensures that there's something constantly observing another area so these interdimensional creatures can't interact with you, further cutting us off from these other dimensions and from the real world. Because I've never understood why these doorbell cameras would exist otherwise, because surely if a thief rings your doorbell, they're going to suss out that you're not at home, so they're going to rob you there and then as they can quickly and confidently ascertain that there's actually no one in the house. There must be another reason for them, a more insidious reason. We then see that Spud the dog's able to see these interdimensional creatures and barks at them, just like how dogs in real life apparently bark at ghosts and how other animals react to electromagnetic fields, which could be a way that interdimensional creatures interact with our plane of existence. So could they be trying to make us give up our dogs so that the interdimensional creatures can move around with less detection? Or is it just showing to people? Or is it trying, shall we say, is it trying to convince people that a bull terrier hurt a little girl, so that means that people are going to be more inclined to believe that a dog is responsible for attacking children rather than questioning why a little girl is in a position to be attacked by a dog? Do you know, like when kids get like eaten by dogs in, you know, when people go on holiday or whatever, and they're like, oh, my neighbour's dog attacked me kid and it fucking killed me kid. People are always going, oh, the dog should be put down, blah, 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 blah. The dog's bad, the dog's this, the dog's that, the dog's owner, blah, blah, blah. There seems to be very little argument for, well, why did the parent of the child let the child go near another person's dog? You know, what's going on here? The parent's the one to blame. Well, realistically, probably the child's the one to blame. But you can't blame a kid if it's too young. It doesn't know, it just wants to pet the dog. It's fluffy, it's nice, it looks nice, it's a doggy, you know, it's a puppy, you know what I mean? It's the parent, man, it's not the dog. Yeah, the dog's bit an intruder, as it should. The dog doesn't, how can a dog understand the concept of age? A dog's not going to look at a kid and be like, oh, that kid's sound. You know, okay, it's a kid. It's going to be looking at it going, that's one of them tall things in my house, it's not my tall thing. Attack. That's what a dog does. I don't get, you know, modern culture wants us to take the victim's side, innit? But in my eyes, right, if a dog mauls a kid, and that dog's never mauled anyone before that kid, then the kid was probably winding the dog up. Plus, the dog usually gets put down, so the real victim in the end is the dog. The girl then locks the dog outside of her home, showing kids that they should keep dogs out of their home. Even more anti-dog sentiment. Whilst the abomination toys were working for Woody, we see the floor is black and white tiles as well. Again, something often associated with MK Ultra related activities, or at least associated with mind control. So here, we've got anti-dog sentiment. Lock dogs out your house, keep dogs out your house, kids. Don't have a dog in your house, kids. You know, the dog will attack stuff, the dog will bark. Don't have a dog, kids. Black and white, 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 black and white. Like, it's fucking mental, mate. I mean, also, you've got them things at like the end of This Morning in the top right-hand corner, where towards the end of each segment, it flashes black and white in the corner. Maybe that's a little mind control thing as well, because they used to tell us, oh, it's to show that adverts are coming up, or it's the end of a reel as they're filming for telly. But they still do it, and it's going to be digital now, so what is that for? It just seems weird that they'd even show that to the public. If you've never noticed it, now you'll notice it. Top right hand corner of live TV shows before they go to adverts, sometimes, especially on ITV, you can see the little black and white thing in the corner, like cycling round. As in, like, it looks like a barcode, but like a thick barred barcode. Anyway, back to the film. We learn that Sid is suspicious of Woody, as Woody seems to materialise in his back garden next to Sid's missile, something that seemed to happen a long time ago at various missile silos around the world, where various nuclear bombs were allegedly nullified by extraterrestrials. We then see that Woody's able to use his pull string and voice box to communicate with Sid. Now this is reminiscent of a few stories of demons, or extra-dimensional entities and aliens. We then see the toys that Sid has worked on and tortured coming back to life, and then working together to turn on him. Now if we were to tie this to 9/11, just as an example, out the bill of me hat, out the top of my head, right? You could say it's alleged that the CIA made Osama bin Laden into the man he was, who then turned on his trainers and handlers and orchestrated 9/11. Just as an example, though, you know. Now, we see the toys form a circle around Sid as well, and at that point, when the circle is formed, Woody comes to life. Circles always seem important as well when you read about rituals or contacting the so-called other side, and Woody issues a warning, which is often associated with many rituals. Plus, if you think back to The Lion King, there's a whole point about the circle of life, but it keeps repeating the circle, like the circle's a really fucking prominent thing that you need. Plus, all of the stuff in Lion King was about extra-dimensional entities trying to eat the negative emotions of people, as in the sense of hyenas eating the depressed lions. And then you've got the circle. Maybe the hyenas pass through the circle, you know. But this isn't about Lion King. You can go back and listen to that one. We then get a weird bit of propaganda showing us that Sid's intimidated by his little sister's doll. But what's a doll other than a toy? So he's not scared of the other toys, the monster toys, he's just scared of the doll. This seems, right, like a way to make young boys grow up scared of feminine sexuality and teaching them to be intimidated by the girlfriends and sisters' dildos and vibrators, which is a way to subtly attack feminism. So not only have we attacked masculinity, we've also attacked feminism in this as well. Not feminism as in like, power to the women, as in just as in femininity, I think is the word I mean, rather than feminism. It also shows the girl taking chase, though after Sid, fucking has been scared, then it chases him, which makes him scared and it makes him scream, a way to possibly try and make women want to attack society, or the so-called patriarchy, trying to teach girls and young girls with this, kids, that they're going to have to attack the toxic masculinity. It's all there in the film, mate. We then see Woody and Buzz be afraid of the removal van, which reads, "Moving the most, coast to coast." Another way of making children afraid of petrol and diesel-powered vehicles, but also scared of moving long distances. Could this be the very first breadcrumb in the journey to 15-minute cities, having some children's heroes screaming at the idea of long-distance driving? Who knows? Now, the propaganda all starts to come together in a violent mashup of fear-inducing dog attacks whilst being part of a long-distance drive. Everything a young child is afraid of, getting mauled by a dog and being traumatised by moving house. The perfect culmination of fear to plant the seed in your child's mind, ready to be watered by the news for the next however many years, right up until the moment your children, or your child if you've only got the one, are actively campaigning to be fenced into their own hometown and picketing to have their friends and family's dogs put to death. We then see the dog barking at a car as well, which seems to be protecting Buzz, possibly showing that dogs are going to be used as a means of removing our cars. Maybe it'll be something that says you can't travel with your dog in your car. They introduce booster seats for children, so it's not hard to imagine that they'll come up with something equally stupid to have a dog in your car. Could also be, as well, for self-driving cars. What if it's a thing about self-driving cars? Or you can't have dogs because a dog could run out into the road and a self-driving car will see that and veer off the road, and then it'll just keep on going and plough through houses, and it's all because of the dogs. There could be all sorts of things here with the anti-dog propaganda. You don't know where it's going to go. If this film isn't propaganda, though, if Toy Story isn't propaganda, if it is just a film, then why is an electric car saving the day? RC, the electric car from earlier on. And why is it saving Buzz from the underside of a petrol-powered car and a dog attack? If we really wanted, we can tie this all in a nice little neat bow. We're seeing Buzz, the man obsessed with space exploration, with a rocket on an electric car. Immediately, obviously, Elon Musk comes to mind, innit? But it might be a stretch to think that a film from 1995 can predict the rise of Elon Musk. But he was predicted, supposedly, by Wernher von Braun, or at least written about by Wernher von Braun about 30 years prior to this film's release. That's just off the top of my head with the Mars Elon, something along those lines. It just all seems very suspicious, innit? Either way, they're using a battery-powered car to save the day, which is something relevant to today's world as we creep closer to the country being forced to abandon their cars and adopt battery-powered cars. 1995 seems, to me, like the perfect time to start planting the seeds for the many children that are going to survive the future dog attacks and war on terrorism of the noughties and be of car driving and car buying age nowadays. In the back of a lot of these kids' heads is that an electric car once saved my childhood hero, Buzz Lightyear. So who cares who's digging up the lithium, I guess, you know? Who cares about the little hands being scalded and burnt? And why bother to think about what is making the electricity that's being used to power up the cars? They're electric. Petrol's bad because we keep seeing it in old cartoons next to the word warning during any villain arc of a story. We see the characters then team up to defeat Woody in the back of the van. The banking cartel teams up with the Muscly Man, which could be a representation of gym goers, another group of people who seem very easily swayed. Oh, so you want to be healthy, do you? Well, you want to know what's really unhealthy? Eating meat. So are petrol cars, they're burning the world. You see how they're all important to each other in order to try and destroy the established leaders of the world. It's all these, is the word machinations, just little different angles of all these different groups, mate, teaming together to destroy what's currently the norm. All the cars that crash on screen as well, because we see cars crashing, they're all red and blue. Something that we do see a lot in children's films are the colours red and blue clashing, maybe even in Star Wars, you know, or a 4-car pile-up in Toy Story. The red and blue colours are probably used to train children to accept the two-party system in America constantly clashing, the two-party system almost in England constantly clashing, Labour and Conservative constantly at each other, colliding with each other, red and blue, red and blue, red and blue. It's everywhere. It's constantly non-stop. You'll see it in films. Go and look at film posters, red and blue. It's fucking weird, mate. It's got to have a meaning. There must be some form of psychological trick behind it. Not just to make you go and watch the film. Oh, Coca-Cola bottles are red, so it makes you want to buy it. No, it fucking tastes incredible and it feels nice in my mouth. That's why I keep buying it. It's got nothing to do with the colour of the can. I like Coke Cherry as well. That's purple. That does the same and feels the same. But I like to have that every now and then so it feels like more of a treat rather than like how I want tap water to taste. Do you know what I mean? It's very different, but there is red and blue in loads of films and that, just especially in younger people's films. I don't think you really see it in older people's films. But maybe this is you know, the I don't know how to get to this next point, but the car pile up, right? The cars are used to block Spud and trap him, right? Which to me shows how politicians are actually working together to take your dog off you. But maybe more than that, maybe all of the politicians of both sides are working together to further trap you and take away more and more rights. Maybe that's what's going on. Maybe the dog issue is just the first, if you like, domino to fall. Maybe it's got something to do with electric cars as well. Maybe a lot of the electric cars are going to be self-driving, like I said, so the idea of a dog running round is going to cause issues for the self-driving navigational system. Or maybe it's going to be the microchips in dogs' necks that negatively affect how these self-driving cars work. Maybe it scans the microchip and it just makes the car act weird. You know, like them QR codes you can supposedly wear as badges and it disrupts CCTV cameras. Who knows? We then see Woody and Buzz use the cover of a petrol car whilst taking their electric car to their goal. This shows us how electric cars will be introduced by having electric and petrol cars hybridization showing its face again. Technological hybridization though. Rather than some form of genetic abomination, which we've just seen with Sid's Toys. We see that the batteries are running out on the electric car as well, normalising children to the idea of a limited range of travel in the future. We also see Andy's little sister is capable of seeing the toys being alive, and it doesn't affect the toy's existence. Now, this seems to be echoed in reality as well, because a lot of people believe that very young children are actually capable of seeing other realms of existence, but they somehow learn to distinguish between them, and eventually are conditioned by children's TV, books and school teachers to block out what many deem to be the actual world around them. And then the brains start to purely focus on what adults tell them is and isn't real. We see the electric car as Woody and Buzz down, and it stopped them from travelling to where they intended to go, and then they resort to using the rocket. Space travel equipment and something that burns in order to create kinetic energy, just like a normal engine would. Maybe what we're seeing is a representation of our own future when electric cars start to be phased out due to their incompetence and get replaced with what's currently seen as a space-age technology. Maybe it's some form of nuclear-powered car or hydrogen-powered car that allows for faster, cleaner travel. We then get a little nod back to the interrogation training and the little terrorism camp of Sid's house, if you like, as Woody uses them techniques he learnt in terrorism from Sid in order to achieve his own goal, but out in public. We also hear Woody saying that rockets explode, which seems like a way to get children ready to accept that rockets entering or returning from space might explode, and possibly a way for the electric car companies to put kids off the idea of moving from electric cars to fission cars in their distant futures, already planting that tiny little seed of doubt, mate, for the cars that could potentially replace the electric cars. This is how clever they are, mate. They're always a few steps ahead. You could never play chess with these boys, mate, never. We see the electric cars used by the space industry to destroy the agricultural company represented by Mr. Potato Head. Maybe they're going to use propaganda in the future to say it's either we eat vegetables, we all eat vegetables, or we use electric cars. Or it might be a way to show us that rechargeable battery production companies will be much more powerful than current farming and genetic institutions. We also see the future. And that's represented by Buzz, and he learns to adapt in order to win over the past, which was represented by Woody, as in like trying to get him to be on side, win him over to his side of the world, how he sings and thinks. So he uses phrases Woody has said in order to be able to control Woody, buzzwords and special like trigger terms. They're falling from the sky, and Buzz repeats Woody's earlier words back at him, whilst literally holding him and controlling the direction that Woody goes in, teaching children that the future is already decided, and it was decided long ago. And we finally get a moon reference here at this point as well. Andy's bed has a moon carved into the headboard, and it keeps showing the moon, whilst all the toys listen in secret, observing the actions of the living room beneath them. Maybe they're trying to show us that the moon is an observation deck rather than a genetic splicing facility. This seems to be a very strong possibility because whilst in this apparent moon base, the toys are getting reports from little green men about the goings-ons in the living room, showing that the people or powers in control of Earth are in cahoots with the so-called little green men or aliens. We then see that Andy gets a puppy, which is a dog, and the heroes of the film look scared. And that's the final message of Toy Story, mate. The final message of Toy Story for us as kids and your kids watching it is be scared of dogs. And that's it, mate. We've picked apart all of the messages that I could find hidden within Toy Story. Now, if you want to hear more stuff, go and find me Patreon. Otherwise, I think this one's gone on for more than long enough. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in a bit.
There you go. The biggest episode I've ever done, and it's probably all waffle. I do realise after editing it, I have a very wet mouth, and I apologise for that now. I'm also going to try and maybe get a mouse that doesn't sound as clicky, so that we can have silent clicks, so I don't have to try and edit them out. I edited a good chunk of them out, but some of them I just couldn't be arsed with. Join the Patreon, you get more episodes, you can download the books. See, I'm sounding probably as bored and as flustered as what you are after listening to this. What else do I need to tell you? Oh, fucking join the Discord if you want to recommend a film for me to look in for hidden messages of on the Patreon as well. I did for a while. I was doing music videos and the hidden messages I could find in music videos, so you can see some of them on there. But copyright makes that difficult. I don't really know how people are able to watch stuff and then say, oh, this is this, without getting it flagged, because all my shit gets flagged on there. So either way, thanks for listening. I'll fucking see you in a bit, mate.